Powerful judge falls in love with a cleaning lady, and his life was never the same again. Accustomed to commanding and being feared, he had never lowered his guard for anyone. But one look from her was enough for all the coldness that protected him to begin crumbling. And when the romance came to light, the scandal shook his career and became the talk of the entire country. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. The sun rose lazily over the stables of Horizon Stables, painting the sky with orange hues that reflected in the windows of the main house. Sarah woke up before her alarm clock rang, as she had done every day for 5 years, since taking over the administration of that place. At 32, she carried on her shoulders the responsibility of keeping alive the dream she had inherited from her grandfather, a riding school that, although not the largest in the region, was recognized for its respectful treatment of animals and the comprehensive training of its students. Barefoot, she walked to the window and observed the property that stretched for several acres. From a distance, she could make out the imposing silhouette of Thunder, the black stallion that years ago had been a champion in jumping competitions and was now the most precious treasure of the stables. By his side, as always, was Windrunner, his 3-year-old colt, the result of a carefully planned breeding. The young horse had brown coat with a white star on his forehead, and according to experts, had the potential to surpass his father's achievements. Sarah dressed quickly and headed to the stables. The aroma of fresh straw mixed with the characteristic smell of horses brought her a sense of belonging that no other place provided. She passed by the stalls, greeting each animal by name, until she reached where Thunder and Windrunner were resting. "Good morning, my loves," she whispered, offering an apple to each one. "We have a busy day ahead." The phone rang in the pocket of her worn jeans. It was Mark Torres, a real estate businessman who had been trying for months to convince her to sell Thunder and Windrunner. "Sarah, I've reconsidered the offer. $500,000 for each. It's more than any medium-sized school could ever get for these animals." "Mark, we've discussed this several times. They're not for sale. Not for that price. Not for double." "You're being irrational. With that money, you could modernize the entire structure of the stables, buy new animals. Some bonds don't have a price, Mark. Thunder and Windrunner aren't merchandise." Sarah ended the call, feeling that familiar pang of concern. The offers were becoming more frequent and insistent. Something told her this was just the beginning of a bigger battle. During the morning, she accompanied the classes of beginning students. Among them, she noticed a girl who remained apart, observing the horses with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. Unlike the other children who were animatedly talking about their experiences, she seemed lost in her own thoughts. "You must be Emma, right?" Sarah approached with a welcoming smile. "Your grandmother told me you would be starting today." The girl, approximately 10 years old, nodded timidly. She had dark hair tied in a simple braid and large, expressive eyes that seemed to hold more stories than her age suggested. "I'm afraid," she confessed in a low voice. "Grandma said horses are dangerous and that people can get hurt badly if they fall." Sarah crouched down to be at the girl's height. "You know, Emma, horses are like people. They need to be known, respected, and understood. Fear is natural, but it shouldn't prevent us from trying." "Can I just watch today?" "Of course. Everyone has their own pace." Emma followed the rest of the class, sitting on a bench, carefully observing every movement of the instructors and students. Her gaze, however, always returned to Windrunner, who was grazing peacefully in the adjacent field. That afternoon, the stables received an unexpected visitor. Heather Montgomery arrived in a luxury car, dressed as if she were ready for a social event rather than the rustic environment of a riding school. Sarah recognized her immediately from specialized magazines, a former Olympic athlete, now a dealer of elite horses for international competitions. "Sarah Richards, I'm Heather Montgomery. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. We're always busy here, but can I help you with something specific?" Heather smiled, analyzing the place with critical eyes. "I've heard about your horses, especially Thunder and his son. I came to see if the rumors are true." Sarah led her to the field where the two animals were. Heather observed them with an experienced eye, particularly focusing on Windrunner. "He has extraordinary potential," she commented. "A true uncut diamond. With proper training and the right resources, he could go very far. We're satisfied with his progress here." "I imagine so, but Have you considered the possibilities for him in the international circuit? I have connections with the best training centers in Europe. Sarah already knew where that conversation would lead. Heather, I appreciate the interest, but both Thunder and Windrunner are not for sale. I haven't mentioned buying yet, Heather smiled, her eyes fixed on the colt. But since you brought it up, it would be negligence on my part not to mention that I represent investors willing to offer considerable amounts for an animal with his potential. The answer is still no. Heather seemed momentarily displeased, but quickly regained her composure. I understand. Anyway, I'll be in the region for a few weeks. Perhaps we can talk more about this on another occasion. Here's my card. After the visitor's departure, Sarah remained uneasy. Something about Heather's presence had left a trail of apprehension, as if the breeze that was once pleasant now carried the foreshadowing of a storm. At the end of the day, returning to make the nightly check of the stables, Sarah was surprised to find Emma standing in front of the paddock where Windrunner was. It's getting late, Emma. Your grandmother must be worried. She thinks I'm at my friend's house studying, confessed the girl without taking her eyes off the colt. I just wanted to see him a little more. He seems sad. Sarah observed the animal. Windrunner had approached the fence as if he too were curious about the small visitor. Why do you think that? I don't know how to explain. I feel like he wants something but can't say what. The girl's sensitivity impressed Sarah. Few adults could perceive nuances in horse behavior like that child seemed to do instinctively. Would you like to feed him? I have some carrots here. Emma's eyes lit up at the suggestion. With trembling hands, she accepted the carrot and, under Sarah's careful guidance, extended it to Windrunner. When the horse gently took the food, a smile illuminated the girl's face. He liked me, she exclaimed with a joy that seemed to light up the entire field. Horses know how to recognize gentle souls, replied Sarah, realizing she was witnessing the beginning of a special connection. What neither of them noticed was the figure observing them from afar. Heather Montgomery, inside her car parked at the entrance to the property, was speaking on the phone. Yes, I confirmed it personally. The colt is exactly what we're looking for. He'll be perfect for our plans. No, the administrator is stubborn. She won't accept a direct offer. We'll need to be more creative. I already have some ideas. Soon Windrunner will be ours, and with him, all the possibilities he represents. At the administrator's house, the phone rang again. It was the feed supplier, informing of an unexpected delay in the delivery scheduled for the following week. It would be the first of many setbacks that Horizon Stables would face in the coming days. The days that followed brought a series of small incidents to Horizon Stables. The feed supply not only delayed, but when it finally arrived, it was of inferior quality to the usual. The irrigation system in the fields had inexplicable failures, leaving some areas waterlogged and others completely dry. One of the oldest instructors suddenly resigned, claiming to have received an irrefusable offer from another equestrian center. Sarah spent sleepless nights trying to solve each problem that arose. On her desk, bills accumulated, along with notifications of late payments. The flow of new students had drastically decreased after a rumor about possible animal mistreatment began to circulate on social media. An accusation that Sarah knew was completely unfounded. I don't understand how everything went wrong so quickly, she confided to Rachel, her childhood friend and the veterinarian responsible for the stables. It's as if someone were deliberately trying to sabotage our work. Rachel was analyzing Thunder's blood tests, who had been showing symptoms of lethargy in recent days. I don't want to sound paranoid, but since that Heather woman's visit, things started to go wrong. Do you think there's a connection? Sarah sighed, massaging her temples. I've already considered that possibility. Heather represents big interests in the equestrian world, has powerful connections, but deliberately causing the collapse of a riding school just to acquire 2 horses seems too extreme. Passion and greed can drive people to extremes, observed Rachel. And speaking of passion, your little admirer is here again. Through the window of the veterinary office, Sarah spotted Emma. In recent weeks, the girl had become a constant presence at the stables. Unlike other students who actively participated in classes, she preferred quieter moments, often simply sitting close to the fence where Windrunner grazed. She has a natural gift with him, commented Sarah. Windrunner has always been a bit wary with strangers, but with Emma, it's as if they've known each other for years. Some connections don't need explanation, replied Rachel with a smile. But does her grandmother know she spends so much time here? The question touched on a sensitive point. Sarah knew, through conversations with employees, that Mrs. Margaret, Emma's grandmother, was extremely strict. The girl often made up excuses to be at the stables, telling her grandmother she was at the library or at friends' houses. I'll talk to her today. I can't allow her to continue lying to her family, as much as I appreciate her presence here. Meanwhile, in a luxury hotel in town, Heather Montgomery was meeting with a severe-looking man. Richard Miller, a businessman in the sports industry known for aggressive investments and impatience with below-expectation results, was observing photos of Windrunner spread on the table. "So this is the specimen you insist we need to acquire," he commented, examining each image in detail. "What makes him so special that it justifies all these alternative methods you're employing?" Heather poured herself a glass of wine before answering. "Impeccable lineage, perfect physical structure for high-performance jumping, suitable temperament for intensive training, but mainly, Richard, he has that spark we rarely see, that indefinable quality that separates a good horse from a champion. Like the one you lost." The comment hit Heather like an arrow. 5 years ago, during the Olympic qualifiers, her horse Emperor had suffered an irreversible injury after a jump. The accident not only ended the animal's career, but also hers as an athlete. "Yes, like Emperor," she answered dryly. "And that's why I recognize potential when I see it. Windrunner could be greater than Emperor ever was." Richard stood up, walking to the window that offered a view of the small town. "We've already invested considerably in this operation, Heather. The saboteurs infiltrated in the school, the payments for suppliers to delay deliveries, the defamation campaigns. All this costs money, and so far, no concrete results." "The owner is more resilient than I anticipated," admitted Heather. "But everyone has a breaking point. We're getting close to hers." "I hope so, because if we don't get the horse in the next 2 weeks, I'll redirect my investments to other projects. I have neither time nor patience for wars of attrition." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Heather knew that Richard didn't make empty threats. She needed to intensify her strategy. At the stables, Sarah finally managed to have a moment to talk with Emma. She found the girl in the usual place near Windrunner's paddock. To her surprise, the colt had his head lowered, allowing the girl to stroke his muzzle, a gesture of trust that would normally take months to earn. "You two have become great friends, haven't you?" she commented, approaching slowly so as not to startle the animal. Emma smiled, continuing to caress the colt. "He understands me, and I understand him." "Emma, we need to talk about something important. Does your grandmother know you spend so much time here?" The girl's smile disappeared, replaced by an expression of concern. "Please don't tell her. Grandma thinks horses are too dangerous. She wouldn't let me come if she knew the truth." Sarah sat next to the girl on the rustic bench. "I understand your concern, but I can't allow you to continue lying. Besides, if something happens while you're here without her knowledge, the consequences could be serious." "Nothing will happen. Windrunner would protect me." The conviction in the girl's voice was moving, but Sarah needed to be responsible. "How about we do this? I'll talk to your grandmother, explain how well you've been doing here, how careful and respectful you are with the animals. Maybe we can convince her to officially allow your visits." Emma lowered her eyes, tears threatening to fall. "She'll never understand. Since Mom and Dad left, she became even more protective. She's afraid of everything." Sarah vaguely knew about Emma's family situation. Her parents had separated and both moved to other states, leaving her in the care of her maternal grandmother. The situation explained both the lady's overprotective behavior and the girl's need to find connection and acceptance. "I promise to do my best to make her understand how important this is to you." That same night, after taking Emma home, Sarah received a disturbing call. It was from the bank, informing about an attempt to execute a supposed debt against the property of the stables. According to the manager, documents had been presented indicating she had taken a considerable loan using the property as collateral, something Sarah had never done. With trembling hands, she called her lawyer, who promised to check the situation first thing in the morning. When she hung up, she noticed a newly arrived email. It was from Heather Montgomery. "Sarah, I heard about the recent problems faced by Horizon Stables. Situations like this are unfortunate, but unfortunately common in the current economic scenario. If you're reconsidering my offer for Windrunner, I'm willing to negotiate on even more favorable terms." Think of it as an opportunity to save the rest of your assets before it's too late. Cordially, Heather Montgomery. The message couldn't be clearer. Heather was behind everything, the problems, the rumors, and now this supposed debt. Anger mixed with fear as Sarah realized the extent of the plot against her. The next morning, upon arriving at the stables, she found Mrs. Margaret, Emma's grandmother, waiting for her with a severe expression. The grey-haired lady with a rigid posture was holding a pamphlet with the logo of a boarding school in the capital. "We need to talk about Emma," she announced without preamble. "I discovered she has been coming here regularly against my express guidance." Sarah tried to explain the girl's exemplary behavior and her special connection with the horses, but Mrs. Margaret seemed inflexible. "I've already made my decision. Emma needs discipline and academic focus, not dangerous distractions. I received an offer of a full scholarship at this boarding school, which also offered additional financial help for our support." A scholarship? Just like that? Who offered this? A benefactor who prefers to remain anonymous. Someone who, unlike certain people, really cares about my granddaughter's future. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together. Heather wasn't just trying to acquire Windrunner. She was systematically removing any obstacle or connection that could hinder her plans. And now Emma, who had formed a special bond with the colt, would be sent away. "Mrs. Margaret, please reconsider. This decision will deeply affect Emma. Here she has found something precious, a connection, a sense of belonging." Sentimental nonsense. What a child needs is structure, education, and discipline. When the lady left, Sarah felt the weight of all the maneuvers against her. Her stables were being financially attacked, her reputation tarnished, and now even little Emma would be taken away. The feeling of being besieged was suffocating. From a distance, a figure observed the property with binoculars. One of Heather's infiltrators, disguised as a volunteer, was speaking on the phone. "Everything according to plan. The grandmother agreed to the boarding school. The administrator is cornered with financial issues. If we keep pressing, in a few days she'll have no choice but to sell the horses." On the other end of the line, Heather smiled. "Excellent. Intensify the pressure. I want to see the exact moment she breaks." The news that Emma would be sent to a boarding school quickly spread among the stable's employees. Many had witnessed the transformation of the shy girl into a more confident child, thanks to her connection with Windrunner. Michael, the oldest handler at Horizon Stables, sought out Sarah in the office where she was unsuccessfully trying to organize the paperwork related to the false debt. "Is it true that little Emma is leaving?" he asked, taking off his hat as a sign of respect. Sarah nodded, exhausted. Her grandmother made the decision. Apparently, she received an offer of a full scholarship at a boarding school in the capital. Coincidentally, right after Heather Montgomery appeared around here. Michael frowned. At 65, he had spent his entire life working with horses and knew the world of equestrian competitions well. This Heather, I recognized her from somewhere, but only now I remember. There was a scandal years ago. Rumors that she doped horses to improve performance. Nothing was proven, but many people in the circuit were suspicious. The information didn't surprise Sarah. Each day she discovered more about Heather's dubious character and her methods. "Michael, I need your help. I'm going to visit Mrs. Margaret tonight. Try one last time to convince her to let Emma stay. Meanwhile, keep an eye out for any suspicious movement around here, especially near Thunder and Windrunner's stables." That afternoon, Emma appeared at the stables with eyes red from crying. Without saying a word, she ran to Windrunner's paddock, hugging the colt's neck, who seemed to feel her sadness. "I have to go away," she whispered to the animal. "Grandma said the boarding school is the best option for my future, that there I'll focus on studies and forget these nonsense with horses." Sarah observed the scene from afar, feeling her heart tighten. She approached slowly. "Emma, don't give up yet. Don't give. I'll talk to your grandmother tonight." The girl turned, wiping away tears with the back of her hands. "It won't help. She's already packed the bags. She said we're leaving the day after tomorrow." Her voice broke as she completed. "I don't want to go, Sarah. I don't want to leave Windrunner." Sarah knelt down, getting to the girl's eye level. "Sometimes when it seems there's no hope, that's exactly when we need to be stronger. Trust me, I'll do everything possible to help." What Sarah didn't know was that her words would be tested sooner than she imagined. When night fell, she headed to Mrs. Margaret's house, prepared for a difficult conversation. The modest residence was on the outskirts of town, about 20 minutes from the stables. Upon arriving, she noticed lights on and the sound of voices. Approaching the window, she saw Mrs. Margaret talking to none other than Heather Montgomery. "The boarding school is one of the most prestigious in the country," Heather was saying, handing some documents to the lady. "Your granddaughter will have opportunities she would never have remaining in this small town. And as for the monthly financial aid, consider it an investment in her future." "I still don't understand why a stranger would be so interested in my granddaughter's welfare," replied Mrs. Margaret, suspicious. Heather smiled, calculating. "Let's say I have a personal interest in helping talented children. Emma has demonstrated aptitudes that deserve to be properly developed." Sarah stepped back, feeling her blood boil. Heather's manipulation knew no bounds. She was about to knock on the door when her cell phone rang. It was Michael in panic. "Sarah, come quickly. There's smoke coming from the stables." Sarah's heart almost stopped. "I'm coming. Call the firefighters immediately." The journey back to the stables seemed endless. From afar, she could see the orange glow and the column of smoke rising into the night sky. Upon arriving, she found employees forming a human chain, passing buckets of water in a desperate attempt to contain the flames that were consuming part of the stables. "Where are Thunder and Windrunner?" she shouted to Michael, who was coordinating the removal of the animals. "Thunder is safe in the field, but we can't find Windrunner." Panic took hold of Sarah. The young colt was somewhere, possibly surrounded by flames. Without thinking twice, she tied a wet cloth over her nose and mouth and ran towards the stables. The heat was suffocating. The dense smoke made it difficult to see. Sarah called for Windrunner, coughing as she advanced through corridors partially engulfed by fire. That's when she heard a weak neigh coming from one of the more distant stalls. "Windrunner, I'm coming, my dear." Fighting against time, she managed to reach the stall where the colt was. The animal, frightened, was backing against the wall, trembling. A burning beam had partially fallen, blocking the exit. "Everything will be fine," she murmured, approaching slowly, extending her hand to calm the animal. "Trust me." With effort, she managed to move part of the debris and guide Windrunner out of the stall. The way back was a curtain of smoke and heat. Each step seemed like an eternity, as Sarah kept a firm hand on the colt's mane, guiding him towards the exit. When they finally emerged into the fresh night air, they were greeted by relieved applause from the employees. The firefighters had arrived and were working to control the fire that, fortunately, had not spread to the entire structure. "Thank God you're both okay," exclaimed Michael, approaching to check on their condition. Sarah, still coughing, noticed something strange in Windrunner's behavior. The colt seemed restless, neighing and looking insistently towards the entrance of the stables. "What is it, boy?" she asked, stroking his neck. It was then that she realized. Emma. Somehow the girl must have heard about the fire. "Michael, keep all the animals safe. I need to check something." Still exhausted, Sarah mounted Thunder, who had been brought nearby, and headed to the entrance of the property. Her intuition was right. Emma had arrived running, breathless and in panic. "Windrunner! Where's Windrunner?" shouted the girl, trying to get past employees who were preventing her from approaching the dangerous area. "Emma, he's okay," Sarah called, quickly dismounting. "All the animals are safe." The girl ran into her arms, sobbing. I felt something bad was happening. Windrunner was calling me." Sarah didn't question the statement. She had witnessed the inexplicable connection between the girl and the colt enough times not to doubt. "How did you get here? Does your grandmother know you left?" Emma shook her head. "I escaped through the window when I heard Grandma talking about a fire at the stables. She was on the phone with someone." The information lit up an alert in Sarah's mind. How had Mrs. Margaret known about the fire so quickly? "Emma, I need you to stay here with Michael while I check something." Leaving the girl in the handler's care, Sarah walked to a more secluded area where the employees' vehicles were parked. Among them, she noticed a car that didn't belong to any of the regular staff. Approaching stealthily, she saw a man talking on the phone. "Yes, the plan partially worked," he was saying. "There was the fire, but they managed to save all the animals, including the colt. No, I still don't know if the pressure will be enough for her to sell. Yes, Ms. Montgomery, I'll keep you informed." The confirmation of her suspicions made Sarah's blood run cold. Heather had orchestrated the fire as part of her strategy to force her to sell the horses. The situation had escalated from manipulation to something much more dangerous and criminal. Silently, she moved away and returned to where Emma was waiting. The girl had calmed down a bit and was now caressing Windrunner, who seemed equally relieved by her presence. "Emma, it's getting late. I need to take you back home before your grandmother notices your absence." "I don't want to go," replied the girl, clinging to Windrunner's mane. "If I leave now, I'll never see him again. Grandma is going to send me away." Sarah understood the girl's anguish, but knew she couldn't simply allow her to stay. "I promise we'll find a solution, but now I need to ensure your safety." Reluctantly, Emma agreed to return. Sarah was preparing to take her when Michael approached with a grave expression. "The firefighters found this near where the fire started," he said, extending his hand. In it, a silver lighter with engraved initials, HM. The evidence was incriminating, but Sarah knew Heather would be too smart to leave such obvious traces. "Someone wants us to think it was her directly," she murmured, "but she probably used an intermediary." While Sarah was reflecting on the next steps, she didn't notice that Emma had other plans. The girl, taking advantage of the adult's distraction, stealthily approached Windrunner. With surprising agility for someone who had never ridden, she managed to climb onto the colt's back without a saddle. "Emma, no!" shouted Sarah when she realized what was happening, but it was too late. With a light touch to the animal's flanks, the girl galloped off towards the forest that surrounded the stables. The colt, as if understanding the urgency of his little friend, ran swiftly, moving away from the lights and the tumult. "My God, we need to find them!" exclaimed Sarah, running to Mount Thunder. "Michael, contact the authorities. Tell them a child is missing with one of the horses." As she rode in pursuit, Sarah heard sirens in the distance. The firefighters had controlled the fire, but now a new emergency presented itself. An inexperienced girl riding without proper equipment, entering a forest at night on a young colt that was not yet completely trained. The darkness of the woods swallowed Sarah as she moved away from the lights of the stables. Only the moonlight partially illuminated the trail. She called Emma's name repeatedly, the echo of her voice getting lost among the trees. "Emma, Windrunner, where are you?" In the distance, the girl heard the calls, but continued advancing, guided only by instinct and the desperate desire not to be separated from her equine friend. Clinging to Windrunner's mane, she felt a mixture of fear and euphoria as the colt galloped between the trees, as if knowing the way, even in darkness. "We'll find a safe place," she whispered in the horse's ear, "a place where no one can separate us." What Emma didn't know was that other eyes were watching her escape. From the edge of the forest, the man Sarah had caught on the phone was communicating again with Heather. Something unexpected happened. The girl ran away with the colt. "They're in the forest now." "This is perfect," replied Heather on the other end of the line. "Find them before anyone else. If we capture the colt now, while everyone is distracted with the fire and the search for the girl, our opportunity will never be better. And what about the girl? She's not our objective. Just make sure to get the horse." The night progressed, and with it, the tension grew. The fate of Windrunner, Emma, and Horizon Stables itself seemed to hang by a thread, suspended between the shadows of the forest and the flames of Heather's ambition. The forest surrounding Horizon Stables transformed into a labyrinth at night. Century-old trees cast elongated shadows under the moonlight, creating a scenery both beautiful and intimidating. Emma, clinging to Windrunner's mane, felt her heart racing as the colt advanced deeper and deeper into the dense vegetation. The initial adrenaline of the escape was beginning to give way to fatigue and fear. The girl had never ridden alone before, much less without a saddle or bridle to guide the animal. Still, there was a silent, almost supernatural communication between her and Windrunner. The colt seemed to instinctively understand when to reduce speed to avoid low branches, or when to stop briefly so the girl could readjust herself on his back. "We're doing well, aren't we?" whispered Emma, caressing the animal's sweaty neck. "We'll find a place to rest, and then we'll decide what to do." What the girl didn't realize was that, in her impulsive flight, she had put herself in a potentially dangerous situation. The temperature dropped considerably during the night, and she was wearing only a thin t-shirt and jeans. No water, no food, no warm clothes. The romantic adventure of running away with her beloved horse was beginning to show its harsher face. Meanwhile, Sarah was traveling parallel trails, incessantly calling for Emma. She knew the woods well from having explored them since childhood, but the darkness made orientation difficult. Thunder, experienced and well-trained, moved safely even on the rough terrain. "Michael, any sign of her on the east side?" she asked through the radio communicator she carried. "Nothing yet," replied the handler, who was leading another search team. The police are using drones with thermal cameras, but the tree cover makes visualization difficult. Desperation was beginning to take hold of Sarah. She knew the dangers of that forest, not just the risk of falls on rough terrain, but also streams that could be full due to recent rains and the occasional presence of wild animals. In another part of the forest, closer to the main road, two men were advancing with powerful flashlights, following precise instructions from Heather. "Her cell phone GPS shows they're moving toward the North Stream," said one of them, checking the device. "If we can get there first, we can intercept them when they stop to drink water." "And the girl, what do we do with her?" questioned the other. The boss said to focus only on the horse. "As for the girl, we leave her to find her way back alone." The cruelty of the plan reflected Heather's obsession with Windrunner. For her, the cult represented more than a financial investment. It was a chance for redemption, to return to the world of competitions through an animal that could exceed all her expectations. After almost an hour of riding, Emma felt Windrunner slow his pace. They had reached a small clearing where a stream of crystal-clear water cut through the terrain. The colt approached the bank, lowering his head to drink. Carefully, the girl slid from his back, feeling her legs trembling as they touched the ground. "You're thirsty too, aren't you?" she murmured, kneeling by the water. She formed a cup with her hands and drank eagerly, feeling the freshness relieve her dry throat. The pause allowed Emma to finally process what she had done. Running away in the middle of the night, entering the forest without direction, leaving everyone worried. Tears began to roll down her face as the reality of the situation imposed itself. "And now, Windrunner, where do we go?" The colt, as if sensing her distress, approached and gently touched her shoulder with his muzzle. The simple gesture brought a strange comfort to the girl. She wasn't alone. She had a friend, a protector. The sound of breaking branches alerted them both. Windrunner raised his head, ears alert, muscles tense. Emma froze, trying to identify the source of the noise. "It must be Sarah," she whispered hopefully. "Or Michael, they came to find us." But the figures that emerged from the shadows weren't familiar. Two men of intimidating appearance advanced toward her, flashlights pointed directly at her face, momentarily blinding her. "Look what we have here," said one of them, smiling disturbingly. "The little runaway and the prize we're looking for." Windrunner backed up, instinctively placing himself between Emma and the strangers. "Who are you?" asked the girl, her voice trembling with fear. "What do you want?" "Don't worry about that, girl. Just stay quiet while we take your friend for a ride." One of the men took from his pocket what appeared to be a thin rope, slowly advancing toward the colt. Emma, driven by the instinct to protect, placed herself in front of Windrunner. "No, you can't take him. He's my friend." The man laughed, rudely pushing her aside. Emma fell, hitting her elbow on a rock, feeling a sharp pain run through her arm. Windrunner, seeing the girl hurt, emitted a furious neigh. He reared up on his hind legs in a challenging posture that surprised even the experienced men. "Watch out! This beast is agitated," shouted one of them, backing up a few steps. Taking advantage of the momentary distraction, Emma got up and, ignoring the pain, mounted Windrunner again. "Run!" she shouted, clinging to the animal's mane. The colt didn't need another command. He bolted toward the dense vegetation, leaving behind the men who cursed and threatened. The chase began again, this time with Emma aware of the real danger that followed her. A few kilometers away, Sarah found evidence of Emma and Windrunner's passage, hoof marks in a patch of moist earth. Following the trail, she accelerated the pace, guiding Thunder with renewed determination. "Michael, I'm following fresh tracks toward the North Stream," she informed over the radio. "Alert the other teams to converge there." What Sarah didn't expect was to cross paths with Mrs. Margaret. Emma's grandmother had been informed of her granddaughter's disappearance and, contrary to her cautious nature, had joined the search. Accompanied by a police officer, she was walking with difficulty over the irregular terrain, desperately calling for her granddaughter. "Sarah," she exclaimed upon seeing her, "any sign of her?" "I'm following recent tracks," she replied, quickly dismounting. "Mrs. Margaret, I know it's not the time, but I need to tell you something important. The scholarship offered to Emma, the person who approached you, it's part of a scheme to keep your granddaughter away from the stables." The lady frowned, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Heather Montgomery, the woman who spoke with you tonight. She's behind everything, the fire at the stables, the financial problems we've been facing, and now the attempt to send Emma away. all to facilitate the acquisition of Windrunner. Mrs. Margaret's expression transformed from confusion to horror as she understood the extent of the manipulation. My God, and I almost sent my granddaughter away, all because I believed that woman's words. Now we need to find Emma before Heather's men find her, said Sarah, remounting Thunder. Come with me, we can go faster together. With the police officer's help, Mrs. Margaret climbed onto the back of the horse, holding firmly to Sarah's waist. Together they continued the search, now with even greater urgency. Meanwhile, Emma and Windrunner had found refuge in a rocky formation that formed a small natural cave. The girl was trembling, both from cold and fear, while caressing the colt's neck. They want to take you, she whispered. I won't let them. Never. The sound of voices and flashlights approaching made her heart race again. Windrunner also perceived it, becoming tense. Emma hugged the animal's neck, as if she could make them invisible by the sheer force of her will. The flashlights illuminated the entrance of the small cave. The men had found them. There you are, said one of them, smiling victoriously. End of the line, girl. Hand over the horse and no one gets hurt. Emma felt tears streaming down but remained firm, placing herself between Windrunner and the men. No, she shouted with all the strength she could gather. He's not an object for you to take. He has feelings, has his own will. The men laughed, advancing implacably. Feelings? It's just an animal, girl, a valuable animal that our boss really wants. And who would this boss be? Asked a firm voice behind them. The men turned, surprised. Sarah, Mrs. Margaret, and the police officer had arrived silently, having heard part of the conversation. Officer Wilson, Environmental Protection Division, introduced the uniformed man, drawing his weapon. Stay where you are. Heather's henchmen hesitated, evaluating their options. One of them, more impulsive, tried to run, but was quickly detained by the officer. I repeat the girl's question, said Sarah, approaching. Who is your boss? Who sent you to chase a child in the middle of the forest? Cornered, the men saw no alternative but to cooperate. One of them, visibly nervous, began to speak. Heather Montgomery. She hired us to obtain the colt at any cost. It was she who planned everything, the fire, the sabotage at the stables, even the fake scholarship. Mrs. Margaret let out a horrified sigh, running to embrace her granddaughter, who came out of the rocky shelter still trembling. Emma, my dear, are you all right? Are you hurt? The girl clung to her grandmother, sobbing with relief. They wanted to take Windrunner, Grandma. They wanted to separate us. The officer, after handcuffing the two men, communicated via radio, requesting reinforcements and informing the location. We'll have a long conversation at the station, he told the captives, including about attempted kidnapping of a minor and animal cruelty. Sarah approached Windrunner, checking if the colt was injured. To her surprise, the animal seemed remarkably calm, as if he knew the danger had passed. You were very brave, Emma, she said, stroking the girl's hair, but also very reckless. You could have been seriously injured. I just wanted to protect him, replied the girl, still hugging her grandmother. I didn't want them to take him away. Mrs. Margaret observed the interaction between her granddaughter and the colt with new eyes. All her life she had feared horses, considering them dangerous and unpredictable. But what she had witnessed that night, the way Windrunner had protected Emma, how they both seemed to understand each other on a level beyond words, challenged all her conceptions. Perhaps, she began hesitantly, perhaps I've been too rigid. Emma clearly has a special gift with these animals. Sarah smiled, seeing an opportunity for healing for both. The stables will always have its doors open for you, Mrs. Margaret, including for you if you want to learn more about the world that so fascinates your granddaughter. The journey back to the stables was slow and silent. The sun was beginning to appear on the horizon when the group emerged from the forest, greeted by relieved applause from employees and volunteers who had participated in the search. Michael ran to help Emma dismount from Windrunner, noting with admiration how the girl, even exhausted, moved naturally beside the colt. This little one has the gift, he commented to Sarah, born for this. In the days that followed, the developments were intense. Heather Montgomery and her partner, Richard Miller, were indicted for various crimes, from fraud to attempted kidnapping. The investigations revealed a history of illegal activities in the equestrian world, including doping competition horses and bribing judges. Horizon Stables, although partially damaged by the fire, began a reconstruction process that united the entire community. Local suppliers donated materials, volunteers offered labor, and even competitors from other equestrian centers sent help. 2 weeks after the incident, Sarah received a special visit. Mrs. Margaret and Emma arrived early, the girl visibly anxious. "I've come to make a request," said the lady, her countenance softer than usual, or rather a proposal. Sarah invited them to sit under the shade of a century-old tree that had survived the fire. "I'm listening." "I've observed how Emma transforms when she's here," began Mrs. Margaret. "How she becomes more confident, happier. I've always tried to protect her from everything I considered dangerous, but now I realize that perhaps I was just preventing her from discovering her true passion." Sarah nodded, waiting for the lady to continue. "I would like Emma to have regular lessons here, not just as a student, but perhaps as an apprentice, and also—" She hesitated briefly. "I would like to propose a partnership. I have some savings set aside. It's not much, but it could help with the reconstruction." The proposal surprised Sarah. Knowing Mrs. Margaret's conservative background, she would never have expected such a change in attitude. "It's a generous offer, but I can't accept your money." "It's not charity," insisted the lady. "It's an investment in my granddaughter's future, in the future of this place that means so much to her." After some negotiation, they reached an agreement. Emma would receive special training, focused mainly on her natural connection with Windrunner. Mrs. Margaret, in turn, would offer her administrative skills to help with the financial reorganization of the stables after the losses caused by the sabotage. Time passed, bringing healing to physical and emotional wounds. The stable was rebuilt, more modern and secure. Horizon Stable's reputation not only recovered, but strengthened after the story of courage and perseverance became known. 6 months later, on a sunny morning, Sarah watched with pride as Emma, now confident and skilled, guided Windrunner through a basic training circuit. The colt, responding to the girl's subtle commands, jumped small obstacles with natural grace. "She has a rare gift," commented Rachel, who was observing alongside Sarah. "The communication between them is almost telepathic." "More than that," replied Sarah. "It's a connection based on mutual trust and respect, something that not every trainer manages to establish, even after years of experience." On the other side of the field, Mrs. Margaret was also watching, seated on a bench that had been specially installed for her. Her grey hair swayed gently with the breeze, while a smile of genuine pride illuminated her face. When Emma completed the circuit, everyone applauded. The girl dismounted gracefully, hugging Windrunner's neck with that familiarity that only true friends share. Sarah approached, handing her an envelope. "What's this?" asked Emma, curious. "Open it and find out." Inside was an official invitation to a junior equestrian competition scheduled for the following month. "Do you think we're ready?" asked the girl, her eyes shining with excitement. Sarah looked at Windrunner, who seemed to perfectly understand what was happening. "I have no doubts you were born for this, not to compete for prizes or recognition, but to show the world what a true partnership between human and animal means." That afternoon, as the sun began to set, painting the sky with golden hues, the community gathered for a small celebration. A mural had been created on one of the walls of the rebuilt stable, depicting Windrunner and Emma in their moment of escape through the forest, not as a story of fear, but as a symbol of courage and determination. Below the image, an engraved wooden plaque bore the words that had become Horizon Stable's new motto: "Here no one is property, here everyone belongs." Emma, dressed in her first official competition uniform, stood beside Windrunner while everyone admired the mural. The colt, as if understanding the importance of the moment, maintained himself majestically erect, the white star on his forehead shining under the golden light of dusk. "Ready for the adventure?" whispered the girl in the animal's ear. Windrunner responded with a soft neigh, as if saying always. Sarah observed the scene from a distance, feeling a deep gratitude. What had begun as a battle to save her stables had transformed into something much greater, the rediscovery of the true purpose of that place, not just teaching equestrian techniques, but fostering authentic connections based on mutual respect and freedom. And as the sun disappeared on the horizon, a certainty filled her heart. Some bonds are truly unbreakable, resisting any storm, overcoming any obstacle. Like the bond between a girl and her horse, forged not by chains or restraints, but by the purest form of love. The end of the story. Dear listeners, we hope that Emma and Windrunner's journey has deeply touched your hearts. To continue exploring equally moving stories that celebrate special connections, we have prepared an exclusive playlist with narratives ranging from overcoming challenges to encounters that transform lives. Find it here, clicking on the left. If this story aroused emotions in you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like on this video. Daily, we bring new stories that explore the complexity of human relationships and the bonds that connect us to other beings. Share in the comments which moment of this narrative touched your hearts the most. We're eager to know your impressions.